Hi, folks. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to have another talk about affirmative action, or its effects, I should say, and I witnessed quite a bit of it in my day-to-day sort of business dealings, and if anything, it's picked up recently as I'm spending more time in the front line of the business that I own a share in. So I'm doing more running around, more time in meetings and more time interacting with clients and other contractors and so on. So it seems to be, certainly to me at least, that things are getting far worse and at quite a speed as well. The deterioration that was noticeable for some time. But it just seems to be picking up pace. It seems like almost everyone that I deal with now is an affirmative action hire, and you think, well, no, that can't be right. Now, there are some that are not, but the affirmative action has had the effect of lowering the standards universally, so that what would have been considered marginally acceptable 10 years ago is now considered quite normal, even when it's not a black, the proverbial black lesbian getting hired, even if it's a straight white male. So much lower standards seem to be accepted now. So I take it pretty much for granted that when I'm sitting down talking to really anyone now, that they really don't know what they're doing or won't know, that they've been employed for any reason other than their competence, or they may have been competent or perhaps even well qualified in a specific sort of area, but they've had other responsibilities added on for which they're completely unqualified. It could be that as well. That's more often the case with the white folks. The straight white males, they've been assigned responsibilities they're just not up to handling, whereas they may have been quite good at one aspect of their job. But whenever I know I'm going to be dealing with a minority of any description, then I know. I mean, it's not even a matter for discussion. I just know they're not going to be qualified. I know that they're going to be employed over the heads of thousands of better qualified people, and that's always very concerning. And the scale of it's really concerning too. It's not like it's just one here and one there. It's like everywhere, and large diversity departments and human resource departments, they seem to have invented these bureaucratic jobs in the same way that the Soviet communist Russians did, to ensure full employment. They just created these meaningless jobs. So you'd have a situation where there's one delivery van, 10 people work in the delivery department, but there's one delivery van and 10 people, so that they just have a rolling roster where each one of them works for 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day or whatever, just so they all do something, but they're not really doing any work, not in the Western sense of the word, or the efficient sense rather of the word. So here's one recently. Well, here's a few, and I'm sort of going to put them into one montage, I guess. But here's we're in talking to one. This is a private, or publicly traded company on the stock exchange, and they're very bureaucratic though, and most of their business comes from government contracts, which again is effectively has turned them into a public service institution themselves. And because of that, the government says, well, hey, we're giving you all this taxpayer money, so you better have a lot of black lesbians on staff. So it kind of goes like that. And so we needed to deal with the HR director to get some sort of paperwork process. So we were talking to her, and straight away again, it's not simply a matter that they're unqualified, which they are, but they're not even being trained. So they're just being hired because they tick the diversity boxes. They're then being given a checklist saying, well, here's your job. This is a checklist. Just follow that checklist, you'll be fine. And then they're letting them loose. So they lack sophistication, the brain power, the understanding of the business. What's more, they don't give a shit. as far as they're concerned, they've been waved through from junior high into senior high. They've been waved through again into college. They've been gifted a degree, and then they've been gifted a job. And to them, the world is just it's all one big doll's house. They're still children playing a doll's house, playing doll's house, and that's their understanding of the world. And their sophistication of the world is about a 13-year-old. Now, remember, instead of working at, when they're at school or college or something like that, instead of working at McDonald's or some fast food outlet and getting the disciplines of turning up on time, doing your job well, instead of getting that, which what used to be the case, certainly when I was a kid or even afterwards, but not anymore. All these, and particularly the girls, all these girls have done work at NGOs, intern work or collecting money for NGOs. And they've attended all the radicalisation things of, did you know Hitler was in every street? Did you know that the straight white male fascist Nazis are in control of everything? It's your job to fight back against the Nazis, and they're everywhere. You have to fight back. You go, girl. You fight those Nazis. So you've got someone that lands in the HR manager's job, unqualified, no discipline, no training, no brain power, nothing to underwrite, their situation. And then they find themselves in this rather well-paid play doll's house type job. It's all ideological, and they can all sit down and have these little girly doll's house meetings with each other, talking about how they're going to stuff all the Nazis. And so the whole world is just one big fantasy, and the difference between reality and fantasy is almost non-existent in their cognizance. So I come, there's a few of us there, so we're sitting down. Straight away we get the look, you're confident straight white males. If you have ability and knowledge that qualifies you ahead of minorities, then straight away you're a kind of a quasi-Nazi already. Because if you're confident and you're a straight white male and you have done a good job, are doing a good job, have been effective, have been rewarded and awarded for your achievements, then you're an oppressor. You're the oppressor class straight away. That puts you in the oppressor. And if you're in the oppressor class, then you're kind of a Nazi. And so that comes across straight away as soon as you sort of sit down with it. Now remember, she's very insecure. She's unqualified. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's been affirmative action waved through. She's done nothing but hang out with NGO activists who tell her the world's awash with Nazis and that sort of stuff. And so that's how she's been indoctrinated in that sense, and she's lazy and incompetent herself. Now they do a lot of make work things, these people. So they love to run around in circles busily. Oh, I'm frantic, as they run around in circles and spinning wheels and achieving absolutely nothing. And that's their view of hard work. That's what it means. And they like to see that, and they like to see sort of this idea of people running around frantically holding pieces of paper and, oh, look how busy we all are. We go into these meetings to find out how many Nazis on staff. So anyway, they've been running an advert for a job for it's a sort of a scientific, I guess you could call it, type role. So straight away you know that 99% of the applicants are going to be straight white males, but they've decided internally that their job isn't HR operatives. Their job is social engineers, to socially engineer society so Nazis have nowhere to hide. Those fucking Nazis. But where the oppressed can be gifted all sorts of jobs and promotions and pay rises, and so their job is to re-engineer society, and so their job is as social engineers. So they run this, but they've decided this job, this scientific job, has to go to minority, and the more a minority, the better. I mean, if they can find a black lesbian single mother or something like that, then wow, look at all the boxes that's going to tick. So they're very much focused on that. Now, they've got a real problem with it because nobody who's qualified is applying for a minority. There's no qualified minority person applying. All the people are straight white males. So they've decided that they're only going to interview the minority candidates, because if they interview the straight white males, then they'll be forced to accept that the straight white male is the better qualified, or one of the straight white males is the better qualified candidate. So they decided, just to avoid that stress or pressure, they just won't interview any straight white males. But hey, problem solved. So they're going to go and only interview minority sort of people. Now, it turns out, and this is when we arrived, this is probably why we got a bit of a hostile reception, but turns out one of the well-qualified straight white males kind of guessed what was going on and has complained. And so as she relates it, the guy, the straight white male, had said, look, I'm a really qualified candidate for this scientific role, and I'm not even getting interviewed. There's something really suspect here. Yeah, if there is criteria that are selection criteria it's applying that's not stated in the public advertisement, then I need to know. Why are you telling me? Why would you misrepresent the advertisement and so on? So job advertisement. So anyway, he's put this in writing. So they're in a bit of a flap about this. They're annoyed at being caught out. They're annoyed at being exposed. And yet, doesn't this straight white male know that we're re-engineering society to make it a fairer society? I mean, he doesn't. The mere fact he's questioning it means he's a fucking Nazi. Just as well we didn't hire that fucking Nazi. What a fascist! He thinks merit should decide who gets the job. He is fucking Hitler if he says that. So that was the attitude. Now, because she was in a flap, she was telling us about this, and I'm really paraphrasing what she said. She's telling us about this, but assuming that we would be sympathetic to her position. So, I mean, we just nodded and smiled. We didn't need the aggravation. But the point, the point as you run through this, she's hopelessly unqualified. In fact, she acts like a 10-year-old child, for goodness sakes. But so they've done something that's illegal. They've committed a number of illegalities here, but that's fine because they're fighting Nazis. They're allowed to do that. They're allowed to break the law. They're allowed to do whatever they want. Collateral damage be damned. They're fighting Nazis. This gives them the moral authority to do these things. So anyway, the guy has said that he's going to watch, the online business sites where people typically post their CVs or say which job they're moved to and all that sort of stuff. He's going to watch that, and he's going to see who they've hired. Is this person qualified? Do they meet the criteria in the advert? Now, I know from my own research, sort of over years, when I look at people that we meet at the interviews, meet when we're having, talking to the subcontractors, where all the subcontractors get in with the clients, and we have the big interview, the big chat, and the big talk through, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm used to meeting people and going and having a look at their credentials online and thinking, holy fuck, this person's even less qualified than I thought they were. So I'm already used to that. So anyway, this guy's threatening it. So they're in a flap about that they're going to be exposed, they're going to be caught out, there's going to be questions. Now, at her own admission, she doesn't think that the shareholders will take kindly to being told that the best qualified people, especially in this scientific role, aren't getting the job, and instead the job's being given to an affirmative action unqualified person. She thinks, no, that's not going to look good out there, in the public domain and with the shareholders. So we have to hide that. We have to hide our misdeeds. We have to hide the fact that we're engaging in this social engineering bullshit. And so what they've decided to do is, or what she's going to do, I don't know if she'll succeed in this, but she's putting a memo out to all staff that they mustn't put any of their their qualifications, credentials, and where they work online or in any public domain setting. So that'll fix it. So this guy won't be able to find out who got the job, which means he won't be able to take it any further and cause them any more trouble. I thought, you've got to be kidding. You've got to be fucking kidding. If he's the best qualified, I mean, I don't know if he is or not, but if he's the best qualified, hire him for fuck's sake. Why purposefully hire someone that's not qualified, then go to such radical lengths to try and cover it up and engage in all this subterfuge? But as far as she's concerned, the problem isn't her and the subterfuge and the lies and the misrepresentation in adverts or anything like that. The problem is him, this guy complaining about it, because he's a fucking Nazi. That's what the problem is. And she's very much the view and assumed we would be sympathetic to it. So just coming back to this woman now. So I went and looked up her credentials. Now, she was a bit of a professional uni student, so her folks must have money. Otherwise, she couldn't have spent that long at university. But she then worked as an intern for an NGO, and then went on as sort of a trainee or work experience, something like that, in a government department. Then did some sort of internship at a university. I'm not really sure what. It was pretty vague. She's there, and she's been hopping around, working for this NGO for 3 months, that NGO for 4 months. It's very patchy. And then suddenly she pops up in this private firm, like in a reasonably well-paid and prestigious job. She pops up as the director of HR. I mean, how the fuck would you put someone like that in there? This is ridiculous. But some of the other managerial people in there, particularly the women, you can see they've made a real effort to do the affirmative action thing. Most of these people are, in fact, every single one that I checked, is again completely unqualified. Now, let's suppose you've got this bent, you've got to employ unqualified people, particularly in supervisory roles. Then you say, all right, well, employing these unqualified people that have nothing, they come to the table with nothing other than their box ticking. So we should give them, pretty serious and intensive training. We should put them working next to a really competent person that knows what they're doing, and then they can learn from them and then be productive employees and add value to the business and so on. But they're not even doing that. So these people are completely unqualified. You just wouldn't even dream of giving them a job if it was the real world where any sort of merit existed. But then they bring them in, they don't even bother training them. They almost just drop them in there and just give them a checklist and say, look, here's your job. Here's your job condensed and summarized into a checklist. Do that. There's your checklist. That's it. And that's how it's done. Then these people are like, so no wonder that all they do is sort of just dreamily go from meeting to meeting, and they live a pretend doll's house type existence that has no resemblance to reality. Now, how any business can afford to have that many Soviet commissar style bureaucrats is quite beyond me. But they're very motivated not to do work, not to do productive things, but they're very motivated at things like climate change, and they give each other time off to attend climate change demonstrations. It's a private company, by the way. Time to attend climate change and do some placard waving. They use the resources of their office to organise activist activities. And they're fighting Nazis, and they'll have all these little HR spreadsheet type things about how many evil white Nazis there are, which is really code for straight white males and so on. So this is something again that I come across pretty much every day. And this surprised me, and I'm making mention because the lengths they're prepared to go to cover up their affirmative action, which means they're guilty about it. They know that it's not the right thing to do, that they know they should be hiring the best qualified person, but they're so fixated and indoctrinated with social engineering and Nazis everywhere and the oppressed and this sort of thing, that they go down this path knowing it's the wrong thing to do. But no one in the company is picking them up. No one's going to say, well, hey, hold on a minute. You can't tell me that black lesbian that is illiterate is the best you could hire for the scientific role. I just don't believe that. Why did you do that, Billie Jean? I want to know. Your job's on the line. No, that's not even happening. And it should be. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.